Ever feel like you're just caught in this whirlwind of thoughts? Maybe worries, challenges, that kind of thing. Or maybe you feel trapped, like in a fog of negativity, and you just can't see the way forward clearly. Well, today on the deep dive, we're looking into something called the art of divine surrender. Now, our source definitely talks about this from a spiritual perspective, focusing on soul level surrender to God. But our mission here is really to unpack the principle underneath all that. How letting go of that tight grip on control might actually lead to clarity, unexpected solutions, even. It offers some powerful ideas, I think, for anyone just looking for more peace and, frankly, effectiveness in their life.
Yeah, what's really interesting here is how the source presents this. It's not just a story of what happened. It really highlights, a transformative approach to dealing with life struggles. It pushes us past just the events to think about why this kind of shift matters, how it connects to, a deeper sense of peace, maybe even efficiency when facing problems.
Okay, so let's get into that core insight, the aha moment for the author. They talk about discovering the power of real soul level surrender to God, and here's the bit that grabs me. In the moment of surrender, everything began to shift. Suddenly, tasks that seemed impossible found resolutions, doors began to open. What actually happened there? How does that work?
Well, it's less about magic and more about a really profound internal change, a
Huh.
recalibration, if you will. When the author talks about this profound internal shift, it sounds like their whole perception of the challenge has changed
Hmm.
fundamentally. And that probably reduced a lot of internal resistance, anxiety, which then maybe made solutions that were already there suddenly visible. It could also subtly change how they approach things, how they interacted. It's almost like paths opened up because they stopped trying to force things
Yeah.
and start, well, flowing with them instead.
Right, right. And it wasn't just scary. The source gives some really concrete examples of this playing out, like interactions with other people. The author felt unheard and unsupported before. But after practicing this surrender, this letting go, they noticed something kind of remarkable. Individuals who had previously resisted began to step forward, completing tasks, showing a willingness to collaborate. What shifted in that dynamic, do you think?
Exactly. That internal shift the author experienced likely changed their whole demeanor, their energy maybe. See, when you let go of that anxious need to control the outcome, others probably sense less pressure, less desperation perhaps. That newfound calm, that lack of needing to force it, can genuinely invite cooperation. It makes collaboration feel more natural. So people who are resisting might suddenly feel more willing to step up. It's like a ripple effect from that inner peace.
That makes a lot of sense, a powerful ripple effect. And it makes you wonder how that translates to other high pressure situations, like work. The source mentions a daunting project, the kind that usually just causes immense stress. How did surrender change the approach there?
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast, isn't it? Moving from that um, anxious micromanagement style
Yeah.
to something more based on trust. Instead of trying to wrestle every single detail into submission, which honestly often shuts down creativity, the author describes allowing for a flow of support. Now, this isn't being passive, I don't think. It sounds more like active non-resistance. And that kind of openness apparently allowed colleagues to offer help more easily. Solutions just started to materialize effortlessly, probably because the whole energy shifted from struggle to, well, openness.
Hmm. Even in really personal stuff like relationships, there was a falling out with a close friend that looked, impossible to fix. But the source says there was reconciliation after the author surrendered the relationship to God, praying for healing. What was the key shift there? It seemed impossible.
I think this really touches on letting go of the need to control the other person or the outcome itself. That's huge, right? By surrendering the relationship, focusing on their own intention for healing, for peace, the author shifted. They moved from clinging on to the problem, maybe the hurt or the blame, to opening up space for a potential solution.
Mm.
And that internal shift, that release, often creates the breathing room needed for real connection, for repair to actually happen, even when things look pretty bleak.
Wow. And it wasn't just the massive life-changing events either. Even the daily struggles, things like managing everyday responsibilities or get this, facing traffic jams became opportunities. So what's the takeaway there for, just getting through the day?
Right. The underlying principle gets clearer there, doesn't it? It seems every moment, no matter how small or frustrating it feels, can become a chance to
Hmm.
practice patience, practice trust. It's about making a conscious choice, maybe, to see those moments not as obstacles you have to fight against,
Hmm.
but as little chances to reinforce that feeling of letting go. It turns mundane frustrations into moments for growth. finding peace even in the small stuff.
So it really comes down to what the author believed. When we trust and let go of our tight grip on life, we open ourselves up to a flow of grace and support that can transform our circumstances.
Mm.
It's this idea of finding peace, finding solutions that actually work, sometimes surprisingly so, not just for the big crises, but in the everyday, the mundane tasks too. It really does suggest that embracing this kind of surrender, whatever that means for you, can open up unexpected possibilities, maybe blessings even.
Absolutely. And that leads to a really interesting question for everyone listening. Just consider, in what areas of your own life might you be holding on too tight? Where could you perhaps practice this idea of surrender? Whether it's in, personal relationships, your career goals, or even just those daily frustrations we talked about. And just try to imagine what kind of peace, what unexpected solutions might unfold for you if you were to loosen that grip just a little.
That's a really thought-provoking question to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the art of divine surrender.